Welcome to Aesthetically Speaking with Felicia Lisa Middleton.
Hello and welcome again to Aesthetically Speaking, where we are building conversations about Philadelphia's locations. This season, season 2, we're talking all things food and planning and designing of food facilities. So in planning and designing food facilities, I always like to talk with chefs. So I'd like to welcome, I'm happy to be here with Char Nolan, plant-based chef, plant-based social media marketer for food, for plant-based foods, as well as, Char, tell us what the other thing is that you do.
I'm also a community health educator.
Community health educator.
With that education and my chef piece, I teach in different pockets of Philadelphia, primarily in underserved communities, to bring the message of good health to the people who need it the most.
And that is awesome. I met Char, first of all, I met you online.
We did.
We met on Instagram, which is why I love social media so much, because it can be used for the positive. But then we met again at a social event with the Doms.
Correct.
So we both enjoy talking with one another. We have some interests that are very much in the same fields. One of the conversations we talked a lot about was back of house and food handling, and then Char is very knowledgeable in that. And when it comes to food facilities, that is huge. So just give me a little bit about what your thoughts on in general of the importance of food handling and making sure that that's taken care of the right way.
Well, you know, it's funny because when I go to a restaurant, I'm two people. I'm the diner consumer, but I'm also with the chef hat on, so to speak, looking at the restaurant and wishing that maybe the server had their hair pulled back and up because when they were carrying a tray, their hair is touching the food.
Yeah.
Or you and I recently had a cup of coffee at an eatery, and part of our conversation was the back of the house wasn't well maintained. Food bags were open, there were no containers, things were willy-nilly, food was on the windowsill. So I think that it's really important for people in the food industry to make certain that everybody is safe serve certified, whether they're at the manager level or the food worker level.
Because
it's so
totally agree.
It's so crucial and so important. And one of the things that I see is that there's often a fast turnaround in restaurants, so they might not even have the time to train someone to learn about, Food Basics 101 about what you do and how food is served. But I think the other important thing about food safety is so many people are popping up as being personal chefs.
Yes.
And they're cooking in their own kitchens. They don't have safe serve. Do they have insurance, which is so crucial and so critical? How important is temping? Probably the most important thing that there is.
Agreed.
And all of those guidelines also need to be taken into consideration for those who are trying to build a reputation as any kind of chef.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned cooking food in your own kitchens. That scares me the minute I see it. I did speak with a chef who I used to share an office with a chef who had her kitchen certified. So if you go that route where, especially in Philadelphia, the rule is you cannot serve food to the public unless the kitchen is approved. It has to be a health department approved kitchen. And I think that's pretty much standard in most places. I'm not going to say it's the rule of thumb all over the United States, but that's probably something that's kind of a standard. Wouldn't you think?
Agree 100%. And then I think if we go from the, quote, home chef, you also have to think about the food truck industry.
Yes.
Because my number one curiosity, and I will always say this to a chef, is, excuse me, but where did you prepare your food?
I always say, actually, can I shake your hand for a second? I actually wrote a blog about this, and I'm glad I wrote a blog on my website. It's called The Hands That Serve You. Networking events are huge with me and with my business. So when I go to a networking event and there's a chef there, my number one question is, oh, so where's your restaurant? I always ask them, they'll try to do it in a very nice, welcoming way, just so that I won't make them think I'm just trying to attack them. But I am curious because I want to know where you're cooking your food. When I get the response, well, I'm just catering, and I get that quite often, then red bells go off because I want to know where you're preparing your food. And so 9 times out of 10, unless I know you or I know something about you, I'm not going to eat it if you tell me you're just catering, because that means you're cooking in your home. It could mean that you're cooking in what we call an incubator kitchen. We talked about that as well. Why don't you just give some insight so people can understand what an incubator kitchen is?
Well, an incubator kitchen, for example, here in Philadelphia, we have the Enterprise Center at 48th and Spruce, where you pay a membership to join, and before you can even walk in the door, they want to see your insurance certification, at least $2 to $3 million worth of insurance. They want to see your safe serve. They want to see any other credentials that might be important to your business. So before you can walk in the door, they need to know that you are legit and not somebody who's strumming up pound cakes in your basement because everybody thinks you're a great cook. But those kind of credentials are so important. And the other important part, and we talked about this a couple of minutes ago, but the temping of food. I have seen food arrive to events that when it's cold, it's warm, and when it's warm, it's cold.
Yes.
And neither of those are a best practice.
And that can create bacteria that will build up on the food. And people don't think about that. When the kitchen, the reason why there's a commercial kitchen versus a residential kitchen is because of just that, the temping of foods.
Exactly.
You don't cook at the same temperature. You don't. Your refrigeration is not the same, and your freezers aren't the same.
And if you cannot join, say, the Enterprise Center, look to your local church, because many older churches have commercial kitchens in them.
And they'll rent them out to you, a lot of them.
They will rent them out at a fraction of the cost, but they still require to see all of the credentials that you need to get into an incubator or commercial kitchen.
And there's nothing wrong with them requiring that, because you're going to need those credentials if you ever want to be a real chef. Or not want to be a real chef, but if you ever want to run a business, you're going to need that insurance, you're going to need those credentials. I'm even trying to get ServSafe certified because I like to go in commercial kitchens. I can't cook, but I do like to go into a commercial kitchen. So I feel like, in studying, I should understand why kitchens function the way they do. And I should also, if I want to come in your kitchen, know how things are supposed to be done in a kitchen. I should know that my hair's got to be covered up, that I've got to have the right kind of shoes on, the right kind of clothing on. So I feel like I should know that myself if I'm going to be going in commercial kitchens, just as much as somebody's preparing the food should know that.
Well, first I'll say that the Safe Serve class is fascinating. You will learn so much because it's very scientific, it's very methodical, and it's the way that I think all food eateries should be. And I'll tell you a very quick story. A couple of years ago, I dropped off some veggie burgers that I had made to a friend, just to be a friend. And she called me up and she said, "Oh my God, they're so delicious." She said, "Can you make them for the restaurant?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't drop them off for a sample. I just dropped them off because I thought I'd give them to you." And she said, "Well, we would love to serve them." And I said, "Well, I don't have a commercial kitchen." And she said, "Oh, that's okay." And I said, "No. It isn't okay, because if anything happened, if there was a widget, a stone, a feather, or whatever, I'm exaggerating, I want to know that where I cooked it was the best place. I want to know that I carried out the best practices to ensure that your product is good and delicious."
And that's the way chefs should be, because you're dealing with the health, safety, and welfare of people that you're serving. You want to make sure that what you're giving them is going to be good for them and help them and not make them sick. I've gotten sick from food, and I'm not going to always say that it's the hands that prepared it, but sometimes I can directly connect it back to the hands that prepared it.
Well, you bring up another good point, and that is going to an eatery where the food preparer is also handling the money at the same time. And maybe they've handled money and haven't washed their hands, even putting on a pair of gloves. I won't eat it. And I did get food poisoning that way last year.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's how they get food poisoning. There's a restaurant, before they became a little bit more sophisticated in their order taking, they used pencils. And I would watch them pick up the pencil and write out the order with their rubber gloves on that are used to protect the food from their hands. But then they're using that same rubber glove to prepare the food. Now, I will say that restaurant organization has gotten a lot more. I'm always watching people prepare food. I see it so different. Now, number one, they don't take your order. And number two, I've seen them pull the gloves off, put another pair on. You know, they might be packaging up your meal, they'll pull that off and put another pair on. So I respect organizations that push this, a higher level of food handling.
Sure.
People wonder why I love a particular coffee shop so much, but I won't name names, but
I know it wasn't the one we went to.
no, it wasn't the one we went to. It's a national worldwide chain, and I'm in love with the restaurant. But it's because I watch what's going on, and I always see safe food handling. And I call it safe food handling because I watch what they do, and I know a lot. I'm not safe serve. I keep saying it wrong. I say serve safe. I'm not safe serve certified yet, but I'm studying, and so I do see and know a lot of the practices that are supposed to be done. So I'm always watching. I'm like you said you were. You go in and let's just go back a little bit about back of house. And one of the reasons why safe serve and safe food handling is so important, especially with back of house. There's all these sinks. And I always get clients that want to know, why are you making me have so many sinks? Well, I'm not trying to make you have so many sinks because I know a plumbing supply place. It's because sinks are very important when it comes to clean food handling. Now, tell us a little bit about what you know from being in the back of house and dealing with all these different sinks.
Well, I wish that everybody used the 3-sink setup the way that they're supposed to. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. And I'll give you a wonderful example. In the back of the house, if you're an Omni restaurant, you're going to have a yellow cutting board for bread. You're going to have a red one for meat. You're going to have a blue one for seafood and a green one for vegetables.
That's interesting. That's something that's new for me to learn. Wow.
I worked at a major grocery store for many, many years and spent a lot of time in the back of the house working with chefs to, create all different kinds of things. So it's the things that you know.
This is why I love talking with chefs.
As I'm learning, so to speak. But to go back to that, just using the right knife, the right tool, being safe about using that Robo-Coup, because that Robo-Coup is a killer to use. I mean, it makes your big Cuisinart look like a rocket ship. I think, having knowledge of how to work machines is all just very, very important. And then, of course, we go into the whole other realm of knife safety. Are you wearing a cut glove?
Yes. Yes.
And the cut glove isn't just for insurance purposes. It's such a big safety thing, because if you have a cut glove on, you're not going to cut off your finger. So
and you're not going to get a little nick and then bleed onto some food. That's another thing.
Well, hopefully you'd have gloves on, but it would still bleed through.
It can still come through when you cut yourself with regular gloves. But I always go back to the sink thing because I get into arguments with people about sinks. And I get people to try to go to find exceptions to the rule when it comes to sinks. And there's no exception. Well, there's a couple in Philadelphia, but there's still, the health department will tell you, very rarely do we let you have these exceptions. But, you got a sink for your mop. We don't want you sticking your mop into the sink that we wash dishes with, because then you contaminated the wash, rinse, sanitize concept of the dish sink. We don't want you putting that in the food prep sink because you're preparing food there. We don't want you washing dishes in a food prep sink because that's, again, you're going to get chemicals in the area where food could be.
Don't wash your hands.
Don't wash your hands in the, please, and I've seen it, and I don't say anything, but I have seen it where people have washed their hands in the sink. That's a food prep sink, and that's if somebody's got vegetables in that sink in a basket and you're washing your hands over those vegetables, then you can contaminate those vegetables. So it's just very important to make sure we use the back of house and we design the back of house, and we consider food handling practices even in the back of house design.
I agree 100%.
So I mean, all of these things when it comes to food handling, when it comes to foodborne illnesses that you can get based on food handling. Times. It's very important when you think about people's health and people getting sick from what chefs do and from their practice. Not just chefs, I won't say chefs, but people that handle food in the back of the house.
And one last thing that just came to mind is farmers markets. Farmers markets need, they also do require that same sort of certification with insurance and safe serve and everything else. And then every once in a while, you know, you have Bonnie's Delicious Cupcakes. And Bonnie just shows up and somebody forgets to send her home and she doesn't keep anything at temp. So I think it's important when you go to a farmer's market to also look at the prepared foods and ask the person who's there, where did you make it, et cetera, just to maintain safety so that you don't get sick.
I agree, and going back to those food trucks, because food trucks are so huge. The same thing, you can see Bonnie's Cupcakes on a counter at a food truck. So it's 100 degrees outside. You've got a food truck where they do have refrigeration and all the proper setup for the way it's supposed to be set up. But then Bonnie is the food truck owner's good friend.
Yeah. So
she says, "Oh, can you stick these out and sell these for me?" Because she's made them in her kitchen. And now you've got a whole can of worms that can open up. And, I'm always looking, I'm crazy. I'll look and see if the label has an address on it when I'm eating food like that, because people will stick little labels on it. But I'm always trying to find out. A lot of times I just won't eat it because I'm just so scared. I have every kind of food allergy you can imagine. And so I'm so scared about getting sick from food. But also, I'm just nervous about, all these different elements that can come together and can really hurt people. People have died from poor food handling, from poor management of kitchens. And it's just so important. And it all goes back to, believe it or not, design. and when I'm trying to explain to somebody design, which is one of the reasons why I have chefs on my show, is so that the chef can help people understand that when we're designing your kitchen, we're designing it with this in mind. We're designing it so that you can give the best kind of service to your people that are going to eat your food. So all of these things are important.
I'll leave you with my last tip.
Okay.
When I go out to a restaurant and the server will say, "Did you want lemon or lime with your water?" I always say, "Have you washed the limes before cutting them?" Because an unwashed lime or lemon can be a carrier for E. coli, so you don't want to have that happen.
That is, you know what? I've heard people talk about lemon wedges and how they just drop them in the water. And I had gotten to the point where I would tell them to put the lemon on the side if I do want lemon, because I'm just scared about the ice now. I'll go in a restaurant, I'll tell them no ice.
That's a whole show.
We've seen
That's
that. Yeah, we've seen the videos about the ice and what goes on with the ice. People touching things and then they go and grab the ice bucket. I was in a restaurant one time. It was before they opened up. We were talking about the design they were going to do, and I watched one of the workers mop the floors. They were bleaching everything and clean. I was like, "Oh, this is a clean restaurant." But then he went and got the ice bucket, filled the ice bin up, and then took his hand that he had been mopping the floor with and ran it all across the ice to smooth it out.
Made it look pretty.
Yeah. I could not. So all of these things just go into helping us sitting here today to try to help you understand the importance of food safety, food handling safety, and why kitchens operate and are set up the way they do. So, Char, I want to thank you again for coming on this show, and I'm happy to know you. I really do want to let you know. I was stalking you on Instagram for about a year before we met. It was funny how we met, but somebody told me, follow her.
We should be food detectives.
Yes, I always say in another life I could be an inspector for buildings and for food, because I just like to stick to all the rules and regulations and laws and stuff. I'm really into that stuff.
That's good.
But thank you again.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and check out future videos. This is going to be a complete series this season. Also, Char, real quick, tell us what your Instagram handle is.
Char_NOLAN.
Okay, follow Char on Instagram. She has a lot of good information, especially if you're interested in plant-based foods, more healthy way to eat. So follow Char. She gives a lot of nice tips, good information. And again, thank you very much for being here.
Bye.